Let's go. Uh, Got it.
Today, I have a special guest with me here at MetaHelm, my friend and colleague Klaus Niderlander. Did I say it right? I think I did.
Very well. Good, good.
Guten Tag, Klaus. I'll let you introduce yourself, but I just want to share that it's been one of these wonderful serendipitous moment in life when you meet through friends of friends of friends, someone like Klaus. It's an honor, and it's just a luck I've had to meet you, Klaus. We've never met each other, right?
Yeah.
We've never been in the same room physically, but we've been in many Zoom room together over the past 2 years. And it's interesting what we've done. We've just met to explore different topics, and I became really intrigued very quickly early on by the work you do. And I thought that today it'd be nice to hear once again, and maybe for me explore more and get to know you even better. I consider you what I call an expert on a mission. Experts on a mission are those people who dedicated their career, dedicated part of their life to pursuing a goal that is greater than the scope of just what they do on a daily basis. They're driven by a sense of purpose. They're driven by a mission. So to me, you have a little bit of that, and I'd like you to tell me if I am correct or not. And so through our conversation, through our conversation here, you are talking today from Belgium. You are
Yes.
German, and you speak fluently French and English. And what other languages do you know?
Only those three, German, French, and English, and a bit of understanding of Flemish as it's very close
Okay.
to German.
Okay. All right. So that makes you a very that makes you a world citizen, I would say.
Actually, somebody pretty normal in the city of Brussels, which has actually more than 50% of non-Belgians living there, and we're speaking three different languages in an already multilingual country. It's more
Uh-huh.
the norm than the exception. So actually, nothing special here in Brussels.
Nothing special in Brussels. That's true. I used to work in Brussels over 2 decades ago, and I knew there are people from all over the planet. It was just so international there. So Klaus, tell us about what you do and what's happening for you in Brussels. What is it that you do? I want people here, the people who watch this video, tell us, what's your work about?
Sure. Well, thanks a lot, Guillaume, for this opportunity and just share my experience. Well,
Mhm.
expert on a mission sounds very high. I think I would probably put it more humbly, but indeed, what I've been sort of dedicating my professional life on was looking into organizational transformation linked to, I would say, societal topics. Despite the background and purely in business economics and starting my career in the 90s in investment banking and management consulting, I've actually moved in Brussels to issues on how you can help support SME development in sub-Saharan Africa. So it's really about, in the end, the development of a local economy, which, provides, the wealth to develop. Then from there, looking, actually heading the European cooperative movement, that's almost maybe my family history. My great-grandfather, had created the cooperative bank in my village, which in 1905, and that was at the time a model where simple people got together and and created a company to basically survive in this disruptive time of the industrial age, and so that how they could sell their local produce and agriculture, create their own banks to finance their development, and have their consumer cooperatives to actually, buy quality food at affordable prices. So
Mm.
I've moved back into that and see that such a collaborative model is actually still very valuable in today's times, where we again in fragile times. I think we are living through disruptive technology movement again. You know, ICT was the first start, but then I think digital revolution is even much, much bigger and much more intrusive, and where people are being left out, and where a lot of things, you know, need a new purpose, a new sense, and actually which are not so much about the survival on basic things like food and consumption, but much more about life at such, social services, you know, about our health and well-being, about our education and learning, about our job and vocation. So so it's how do we organize in that? So I've seen how renewable energy cooperatives developed all over Europe to take the climate change issues into their own hands and be an actor. And the last 5 years, I've actually looked into the demographic transition. You know, our populations are aging quickly in Europe, but also in the US to some extent, and also in Asia. And how do we adapt to that again? Because it changes everything from the workplace to well, how do we take care of an older population? And here it was, how can we use digital technology for that? So as you can see, there's a business angle to it, but always a sort of a socio-economic topic in there to deal with. And my mission sort of like is always, how can you prepare organizations for that, or how do you change direction, change ship in embracing this change rather than trying to resist it, which obviously doesn't work.
So you say prepare organizations. Can you give us maybe a bit of, can you expand on what kind of organizations do you work with?
Yeah, myself, I actually worked very much, that's the typical Brussels field, you know, worked in sort of international agencies or international associations, public partnerships, and so their focus actually should be on how to accompany such a transition, because, you know, there's public spending into it. But at the same time, they're very much organized, from the past times, very hierarchical and very compartmentalized. So here it was, how do you break this up? How do you unleash actually the energy and the power of the people inside there? That means, how do you change your management in there, you know, so giving each one the freedom, the autonomy to do the things he's good at, and together actually be much more productive and much more energized to do our little part to help, you know, in this transition.
So there is so much to unpack here, Klaus. So that's why I love this. What you do, this topic, is because it's really, I think it's very relevant to, as you say, to who we are as a society, as a worldwide community. It's very relevant right now because we are hearing, and we can obviously see that, you know, different types of revolutions and changes are putting pressure on how we operate as a society. So let's start with this, maybe what I call the origin of what you do, you know, which is one of the main facet, I believe, you know, when you build a narrative, when you build a strategic narrative for a business or build a narrative for yourself. So how did you start in this, you know, in this career, in this trajectory? You said, you know, you studied economics and business and management, and now you're, you know, and at some point, I'm guessing, and that's what I'd like to hear, is what made you pick this direction?
It's a combination of different things. I think you mentioned the word serendipity the way we met. I think for me, serendipity is actually something which is part of it. And serendipity it's not about luck, actually. It's about being open, being fragile. That means listening to people. Oh, what's happening around it? What are they doing? You know, and then like, oh, and how can I relate that to you? So that way helped me to meet a lot of different people who gave me, you know, moving out of my village and, you know, and going into the world and learning, oh, there's so many things you can do. And then things happen, you know. When I worked in management consulting, I actually did a project for the World Bank for the developing an economic strategy for the city of Johannesburg in South Africa after they changed the democracy. and that I met so many freedom fighters during that time, and also seeing the potential what is happening in Africa, which then somehow naturally and still by accident took me to my first job in Brussels, which was about SME development in Africa. And there, gosh, and I can tell you, when you take a plane to Ethiopia, you land in Addis Ababa, and you go out of that plane, think, what on earth can I do here? This is such a huge continent. There's so many issues there in there. And it again, you just do your little part, listening to people, connecting them together, and we helped to create the first footwear factory in Ethiopia, which had been the dream of those tens of tanneries, which they have been there for 20, 30 years, and bringing them together with other entrepreneurs and supporting in that process help them. So I think a lot of it is just meeting people, listening to them, sensing them, and then connecting things, and then you connect yourself. That's why I met another lady who then with whom we developed a textile cluster in Madagascar, and who talked about the cooperative model very much. And so that tied me back to my cooperative family ties, and eventually, well, the job came up to head the European cooperative movement.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you here, because
Sure.
No, you're making this movement with your hands. What does this mean?
It's spinning, it's spinning these things. I mean, there are these different moments of uncertainty where you don't know what's going to happen, and rather than jumping to conclusion then, or trying to go into security and just do something, okay, if I stay perseverance, just stay open and listen, who knows what's going to happen then, and maybe that is the way how I can evolve. And and that's maybe one part of my trajectory, to get closer to your own source, who you're really about, and what you really can give, without any exaltation. Very humble is my little part where I'm maybe good at, and where I can help to move things forward, and unblock things. And I think that's been sort of the essence of my path in there, which, again, today I'm in that situation, where I just finalized a mission and looking for this next mission, which I don't know yet at this stage what's it going to be.
And you're okay with that, not knowing, it sounds like.
Well, talking with someone makes it always easier, because you're in contact. But I can tell you, when the screen takes off and I'm just home alone in my office, there are also these moments of anxiety, or is this going to happen? Will I find it?
Right.
I will need it also. So it's up and down. So keeping that balance and keeping faith, in that it's going to happen, is something which is going to be challenged all the time. So, and you have to find your own faith in there.
So well, let's pause here. Let's table that. I'll get back to that. You have to have faith in your own. You have to have faith that something is going to happen. But let's go back for a moment. In the past here, you said something that caught my attention, which is you have to sense. And it's if I heard you correctly from the get-go, it sounded like you were very curious. You were very open-minded. You let things happen, and sensing, I think, and that's very, I would say it's very, it comes in contrast to maybe other types of advice I've heard in my career early on, which where you have to have a plan, and you have to check on your plan, and really and double check that this plan is happening, and you can only spend so many years in these roles and situations. I see you laugh, and now I laugh about it too. But at the time, that's the narrative that I was really swimming in, around me. But it sounded like you have a different approach, and if you had told me at age 20 or 25, hey Guillaume, you need to sense your career, I would have looked at you with googly eyes. And I'm assuming many people are still wondering what does it mean by sensing. So can you shed some light here about this word, sensing?
I've been laughing. Of course, I've also been indoctrinated by the 1990s business schools, where you have to have the plan, the 5-year plan, know exactly where you're going. But most people just don't know. And I don't think you can sense a career, but I think it's just, and it's not like you're naive, just let things happen. No, you occupy yourself clearly for something, you know, and so it's more this curiosity which you develop over time. And I think it's also maybe a question of experience. I think when you start a career, having some structure, you know, and having a learning experience, all that is actually very important. So I was quite happy doing management consulting because it helped me, it gave me a lot of structure in dealing with, you know, with complex issues and in a very unstructured world. Without that, I probably couldn't have done such a path. But what you realize is then afterwards, you know, okay, but I still don't know, you know, what is it, it's probably, I'm on a journey, you know, and that journey will never end really. And it's sensing means like just being open to your outside world, be open to meet new people, listen to new perspectives, try to speak their language, you know, and actually try to put yourself into the shoes of the others, which because all of a sudden you get a different perspective on an issue and maybe on your own then as well. So it's a way of learning, I would say, and it's also a way of letting go of your own ego in a sense, because it often stands in the way of, you know, of really realizing what you want to. Because ultimately, what's the purpose of, you know, of what you do is, you know, to obviously find some satisfaction, but also find some usefulness, you know, and purpose in it.
I think it's a very refreshing message here to, because what I'm taking away from this conversation is that you let your expertise and your career emerge through that process of sensing and openness to the outside, people, places, opportunities, problems you see. I'm hearing also the theme of empathy, right? You're really trying to not be other people, but really try to understand and be in other wear their hat or be in their shoes for a moment and really try to see things from their perspective. So it's fascinating how you let your expertise really emerge. You know, the picture that comes to mind was there was a plan, there was a structure in the beginning, and if I often like to use the metaphor of you know, planting, you know, growing plants. It was probably like if you try, bear with me here with the metaphor, there's probably you know, a planter, a spot in your life where it was clearly defined. You were going to structure your career and cultivate your expertise there, but then you let it grow within those boundaries. You let it take you where you were supposed to go.
Yeah, and you know, well, to start developing confidence in yourself that things will happen, but also having confidence in others. There have always been people on that path, you know, which had somehow an impact on you. And I think, but for that, you need to be open to meet them, you know, and have confidence in their, hey, you get messages each time when you meet someone, and you can then reflect back and what do you learn from it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at your career and you think about what you focus on these days, can you trace back to a specific moment in your life when you got some kind of spark or passion for what you do today? Can you trace back to is there? And you may very well say, nope, sorry, it's not a specific, you know, day, time, place, people, but maybe it is. But I'm just curious here. Is there such a thing in your?
Sure. I mean, there's probably been, you know, I think it's, you know, for me, it's a journey. And my journey really started when I was 16, you know, and I left my hometown and went as an exchange student for a year in the US. And, you know, in the 80s. I think that put me on a travel that started to see the world, you know, and then that was actually my driver afterwards. What I wanted to do is where can I travel? You know, I did that for my studies. I just studied business, okay, but just because that was the easiest way to spend at least half of your time outside of Germany. So like, perfect, do that. And in banking it was the same. Yeah. So actually this notion of being able to travel around, being on a journey, and then, you know, in each time differently, made an impact. And each time like kind of getting closer to what you really want to do. And but I think it's the real thing which sparked it was this traveling. And that's
traveling
happened at age of 16 already.
So let's go back for a moment to what you said earlier, which was why what you do matters so much now. I'd like to hear you explain walk us through why helping organization change the way they are structured, and helping helping people better organize. And I know you have a particular concept that I'll
Sure.
let you talk about. You work, I know you work on ecosystems,
Exactly.
which is to me, I'm still learning from you, and I think very valuable, because I see it as an evolution from the traditional way to organize. So back to, so there are two questions here. So the first one is, why does your work matter more than ever right now, these days?
One is because we are almost in a perfect storm at the moment. You know, we have so many changes, transitions going through: demographic transition, climate change. We have you know, the whole social transition going through, then the technological one. It's so many things at the same time, all very complex, that, you know, with our old ways of doing, we just can't manage it anymore. I mean, we've seen it we have so many crises, one crisis after the other, and that okay, just tells us, look, we have to let go of something here. You know, maybe our old industrial age way of compartmentalizing things and putting things in a silo and dealing. No, we have to actually break those walls and start collaborating together much more. We can't do it alone anymore. You know, the great hero time is over. It's actually, the great heroes is the groups. You know, but that means we need to organize ourselves differently, and I think technology can help us to organize that way. So in organizations, you know, well, you know, okay, we have the flat hierarchies already, but flat hierarchies without a real change in mentality of how you work, you know, and giving autonomy to the people won't change anything. But there's another dimension. It's not only what happens inside an organization. How do we collaborate between organizations? That's where ecosystems are coming into place, which we can learn from nature. You know? In the natural ecosystem, just like a human ecosystem, everyone has a place and a role to play there. There's not a useful or an unuseful one, which unfortunately, you know, in our capitalist system, sometimes, you know, we have the productive and non-productive ones. Nature does act like that. A human ecosystem doesn't act like that. So that, I think, changes fundamentally something. Everyone can and should see themselves. So and that needs to be activated. That, you know, that you see yourself actually being part of an ecosystem. It's not that you create an ecosystem; it's actually there. But you creating this consciousness awareness is extremely important. And then, of course, unleash the power of an ecosystem when you start collaborating, and, you know, that you can actually tackle more complex issues together, not to solve it like that, but to give it a common direction. We think we are progressing in there. You know, we can actually adapt to the demographic transition without having, you know, 50% of the people falling under. We can reallocate the resources much more efficiently and effectively in such a way. But it requires this culture of collaboration. You know, it requires this openness and working together inter-organizationally. And it touches on everything in there, on, you know, on your business model, your service model, the way you govern your on organize it. So there's a lot of different things where you have to, yeah, again, it's a journey. You know, we move from very practical operational things to very abstract macro political things, and all belong together. And I think this is a way of bringing it together. By bringing the people together. It's about relationships. You know, that's the real currency, and what lies behind relationships is trust as the currency.
And I think it's a very helpful way to think, especially for so as you know, I focus on helping people. You know, I define my clients as being CEOs, founders, and business owners of professional services firms, whether those firms are large entity. What I mean by that is I have clients who have thousands of or more people, all the way to solopreneurs. And I think what you're saying today is very useful for both ends of that spectrum, the size of organizations, because when you are a large firm, you're consistently looking for ways to define yourself in a market, in an ecosystem, and the traditional, and I still hear it all the time, is you say, I have competitors, right? My competitors are doing this. Our competitors are launching that. our competitors say this. So that's the, you know, it's the language, it's the vernacular in the narrative, in the strategic narrative of most professional services organization. And then if I go all the way to solopreneurs, you know, I'm closer to that, you know, I'm closer to that end of the spectrum, obviously. And, you know, we think, okay, how should I behave, you know, in the world? Should I be scared of competitors who are gonna steal my business, steal my ideas, or is there enough work for me? Do I believe that the impact that I'm dreaming of creating can actually happen? So I this is where I find this concept of ecosystem and, you know, really, really useful.
Yeah, no, and you know, we are all interdependent. You know, there's nobody. Independence is an utopia. I mean, when you're a student, you think you're independent, but that's about the only time when probably we are not. We're all interdependent, being big or small. Of course, when you're small, you have an interest to collaborate with others. You know, to build critical mass, and you know, and to stem yourself against. But even as a big organization, within the big organization, there are small organizations, or there are people in there. And actually, you know, this, yeah, we always talked about the competitive advantage. You know, I think nowadays, a friend of mine wrote a book, it's the collaborative advantage. Even as a big company, you have an interest to collaborate, you know, for innovation with small ones and like. And if you play too much the power game of domination, well, you will eventually also go under. And actually nowadays, maybe much quicker than before. We'll see what happens to the GAFAs in the US. I think some of them might go under much quicker than we think, because they're overdoing it with this power game of an ecosystem. Is not that you have someone in the middle who dominates everything and reaps the benefits. You know, I get the 30% if my app is on your store or something. No, it's redistributed much more equally. So it works actually much more democratically. We need each other, little or small. And actually nature does it like that as well. So there is a logic in there which is different from the current competition, more bigger is better and so forth thing.
So I love what you say, the collaborative advantage. I love that. You know, it's the first time I hear you say that. Did you come up with that?
No, that's a friend of mine who wrote a book on it, and actually, Paul Skinner from the UK, and he wrote about the collaborative advantage, also based on his experience in marketing. That, you know, we have to think differently, you know, not inside out controlling things, but from outside in. How are we part of something wider? And if I actually collaborate with someone else, well, it's a win-win situation, you know, and. So we know that from, you know, from game theory and everything, that, you know, the win-win is thing. Competition is not win-win, it's win-lose, you know, but collaboration is win-wins. And yes, we need competition, you know, sometimes to get the most efficient and effective service. But that is in a wider system, you know, especially when it comes infrastructure and all that, which needs to be collaborative. And I think that's for me is the layer now to develop and to make it much more important. I think competition is far more overvalued in the end. Do you want to compete every day? I mean, you go crazy. No, I mean, most of the time you want to have a.
Well, so many questions here for you, Klaus. Can you tell us a little bit? I know you've been working in the recent years on specifically on the topic of aging populations. Can you tell us what challenges we are actually facing from where you are, from your point of view? Can you give us your perspective on the challenges about aging population? And I would add, and how the collaborative advantage then is going to help us solve those challenges.
The aging population is indeed, if you only look, but on the one, it's very positive that we're getting older than ever before. I mean, that's a gift of life that we. At the same time, it means, but also, you know, we will have more people also who require probably care in that, you know. And so one of the challenges is in that field that we have the doubling of the demand for care in most Western countries over the next 20 years, while already today we have a shortage of carers, you know, which is very significant and which will actually double. So there's a clear field in COVID, we have seen it, a challenge around care. And actually the thing is what does it mean taking care? That we not separate our older population from the rest. Aging is a life process. So we should look at care holistically from birth to the end and see life like that. And that comes already, well, what means collaborative advantage, for example? Well, that you well, how can you actually, stay as long as possible at home? So in your community, and that means, how can you build you around a system around you when you lose some of your physical or mental abilities that you can still, cater with it. And that means, if you collaborate with others, it can help. Intergenerational housing is one example, that you do these things. But it's also building platforms that different services help the person to stay there. But it's also about, it's about the labor market. Well, we're going to have shortage. And another challenge of an aging population is, if we keep our current system, we will not have enough people working anymore, and to keep our certain welfare. So there again, we have to find new ways. What it shows is, we have separated our life before between childhood, adulthood, working, and then old age. We have to come back again that it's all actually one stream in there, and that the more we actually interact with each other, as it has been before, the more we will all benefit from it. So yeah, and that for me is the real collaboration, is about the relationships you build and with the in there, and the stimulation you get through that. And that's the first. It's the biggest issue is actually loneliness for many. But loneliness is for older people a problem, actually more and more for younger people as well, especially since COVID.
Yeah.
Well, how do we get out of that? Well, we need to get out of our silos, and actually find we have to redefine our social space, which can only not be online, but still has to be in person. And so there's a lot where we have to come together again.
So Klaus, I know you are very active, and you facilitate, you speak at conferences, you do workshops. I know you present a lot, you work, you write, you meet people. Concretely, what do you see happening in that space that is really moving things forward? Can you give us some examples of specific projects or tools or frameworks? Just maybe a couple would be helpful to really grasp how concretely on a day-to-day we can help with this mission of aging better and living better together.
I've been very much influenced, from a framework kind of side of the work by Professor Otto Schammer from the MIT, who has written a lot from ego to ecosystem, and who described this whole social transformation process. And I think there are many examples you will find in your own community, because these things don't happen neither on a national or an international scale. It's going back to your local community. And, we have plenty of examples in Europe, where you revive, your local village, where we have seen that many villages, that the young leave, the old stay there, and little by little, there's nothing there anymore. And there are initiatives where it's like, we changed our housing. We actually live together. We don't live as old people in their little houses. We actually bring them together. That develop service around, which attracts younger people again to provide those services. And all of a sudden, you create this internal ecosystem which revives it. That's one example. Of course, others, the Netherlands, they actually propagate. We want to deinstitutionalize this whole elderly care, and we want to see how can we keep our people in their communities. And they gave a lot of freedom also to the service providers. So they have a tradition of community nurses, and they actually let them organize themselves in little groups without hierarchy and bureaucracy. And they are a great gatekeeper in there. Birdsong is very known for that, a social entrepreneur. So being back closer to the citizens. And so, I think we all have to be aware it concerns us all. Eventually, we're all going to be old as well, or we already have parents, and don't wait until it's, when the accident happens, and then you have to organize, everything. It's more like, hey, start looking what's already around in your community, and maybe, link your job to it. I think, our companies will have an interest in there as well to look at this question, so that they can keep, their employees in there, because eventually they might have to take care of their parents. I think there's a vital thing.
And I think it's a bi-directional conversation here. It also helps younger generation understand. You just alluded to this. Help understand that we all die at some point. This is the cycle of life. We age. and also maybe find opportunities in relationship opportunities, social opportunities, job opportunities, in rebuilding the way we coexist together in those ecosystems that you're talking about. Is there so I know you're based in Europe, you focus on Europe. Is there a difference in the way we should understand those challenges and those solutions in different continents on the planet? I mean, I obviously, not population have the same aging curve.
Absolutely, but at the same time, look, I mean, we have collaborated also with Canada, been in contact also in the US, about the classic states where there's, Florida, where there's a lot, and where they're confronted with that, but also Colorado is doing a lot in there.
Okay.
South Korea, we have worked with because they have a super age society, or like Japan. So China is being faced a lot with it. I think what you find. Of course, you find a big difference what political system you have. I think there's much more similarities, of course, in a democratic system where you focus on the autonomy and the freedom of your people in there, but maybe a more autocratic country where it's more about control. So yes, there are cultural differences, and the Asian countries, Japan and South Korea, much more technology prone, using robots and all that in there in care and all that. And the US, obviously being crazy about tech in there. But overall, we're all facing the same issues, and it's about life. It's about our grandparents, our parents, about ourselves, about our children. And so it doesn't matter that much from where we live on this planet. It's more like, okay, how do I fit? You can't copy and paste things, but you can learn from each other and reproduce things. And in Europe, we're trying to do that already, because there's a big difference between, the Scandinavians, very organized, maybe, maybe the Netherlands or UK also very tech oriented, and the southern countries, very community oriented. You can learn from all, because it's the interface, of products and services and technology and people, and and how do you develop this properly.
Klaus, if I were to if I were to assume, let's make an assumption here, that you are your own business, right? You are your own entity. I really clearly now understand what I call your horizontal positioning. It has always been about helping organizations shift, evolve, work better, and on top of that, you added layers of frameworks such as the concept of ecosystem. And you and I have talked about, as you and I have talked about before this recording, you intend to continue towards this. But what I'm hearing is that and what I know is that you focused on different vertical challenges to solve with that process. Your latest one was aging population. You're transitioning now. You mentioned that you're transitioning to something else. Am I getting this right? Like your vertical for a certain amount of years was, okay, I'm going to focus on aging. And before that, it was other things. But in the future, what is emerging from your current sensing process? What are the topics that makes you excited for the next chapter of Klaus LLC or Klaus Inc., depending on the.
Oh, that's a good question. This is a painful process, I can tell you. This sensing, because until it gets into your head and you understand it properly, it takes some time. And but I think for what I see is, this is about services to people. It touches people's lives. This could be about health and well-being. Could also be about education and learning. Could also be about vocation and what you do in life. And so that, I suppose that I can't say. I think at the moment I'm dealing still a lot with issues in health and care, if you want to talk more about sectors, because I think there's a lot. I think it's somehow, our whole welfare state is transforming. And so I could see something in there, because the welfare state captures everything what life is about. Our security, when you're ill, or when you're without a job, or when you don't work anymore. But more positively would be, well, how about that you're well, that you're continuously learning, and that you find your vocation, what I'm still also trying to do. And how can you support that? And that is about, how do you work with people then in there who see it like that, hey, we have to collaborate and to find a space. And this is not something which you can just control and develop. This has to emerge. And this emergence is something very important, and just like ecosystems emerge. So yeah, I'm in this emergence stage.
So okay. So what I'm taking away here is, and if I were to translate your advice to somebody else, let's say, okay, you're trying to figure out how you want to specialize. This is going to be that industry or that industry or that industry or that community. Let it emerge first. Let's see how this aligns to you, and how this resonates with you and aligns with you.
Exactly, but this letting emerge is a proactive approach. Just
okay. I don't sit here and just let it emerge.
Happily, that would be really great. I've been trying that, and nothing happens. So that's why I had to go out to a fair today and meet really interesting people. No, you have to move all the time.
So tell us about what's your process? What's your proactive approach then? What do you do on a daily basis?
My proactive approach is one, I'm actually participating in fairs and panels, and with actually approached me also because I've been long enough in this field of healthcare now, and also with companies. So I'm engaging with different ones where people came to me, but I'm also going to these network events to exchange, and yeah, it keeps me very busy actually. Doing all this, so there's having this reflection, but also just proactively contacting people. You think, hey, there could be some common ground. They have the same kind of spirit on doing things. So it takes a lot of perseverance and a little bit of innovation in there. And of course, there's always in the background when you're looking in the job market also, but see also what's happening there. In the end, I've always fallen into organizations, through classic job adverts, and worked then from inside and changing things.
Yes. So your model will be to your business model will be to work as a contributor or as an employee within an organization, not necessarily to establish your own business entity.
I'll leave that open. My dream is, of course, still with the 5 friends, my like-minded business friends, to do that. I think that would be most perfect, because then you're in an environment where you can fully excel. We'll see if I achieve that. Let you know maybe in a year's time. But there's no better different ways of doing it.
Yeah, no, I believe there is no better model than the other. I think and I hear it in what you're saying, is that you pay very, very careful attention to align what's the best choice for you at a specific time and place, and you make the decision based on that.
With a lot of support of others who can advise you on that as well. You never do that alone. You need your support network in that too. Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Well, I'm glad to be part of this network. I'm very, very happy to have had the chance to follow you, and we will continue. We'll continue. You and I had really awesome conversations, mutually beneficial. I feel I am part of your ecosystem. I felt also, I noticed that how you sense and how you made your decision based on a process that is quite unusual still, that relies on intuition, on sensing, on curiosity, on leadership skills that everybody talks about, but very few people actually apply. That's my my observation, my 2 cents. So I'm very admirative of that. So let's, as a wrap up for this conversation here, that I'm so excited that I'll be able to share. You give me the opportunity to share this recording with my audience, my community, my part of our ecosystem.
Okay.
Now that you're part of it, where can we get a hold of you, find you, follow you? Like, if we want to get closer to Klaus, Klaus, what do we do?
Exactly. Yes. Very well. Very easily via LinkedIn is easy, or via a very simple email. It's the classic thing of today. And you can provide the klaus.niderlander@gmail.com, and here we are.
Okay. LinkedIn and email. Okay, I'll make sure I do that. Thank you so much, Klaus. This is, again, I learned so much. And I my takeaways here about how to continue to evolve your mission, make better choices, and follow what your inner voice tells you. So,
Well,
Really
thank you, Guillaume, for stimulating that exchange and those questions, because that's what you need to advance is being asked the right questions or asking yourself the right questions.
great. I'm glad I was able to provide that moment. Thank you, Klaus. Have a great day in Belgium, and we'll talk again soon.
Excellent. Take care. Huh?
Okay.